So as you probably know, I've been playing a lot of Hearthstone Mercenaries, and I'm starting to notice that some of the characters just feel kind of weak. Now, I think they've done a very good job on balancing a lot of the characters. Obviously, some of them are better than others, but they've done a really good job. I think you can almost put any single mercenary into a comp and they can accomplish something, but there are a couple I want to focus on in this video that I think desperately need a change and or a buff for them to see any PvP play whatsoever. And if they don't get a buff or some kind of change, they're probably just going to sit there and cry every single day. So Blizzard, if you end up seeing this video, I'd love to see some of the improvements on these characters. And most importantly, I want to see what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you agree with my opinion? Do you think there's a certain character in the video, or not the video, just in general in Mercenaries that needs a buff? Now, normally people are gonna be like, where's the nerfs? What are you talking about nerfs? I think buffs are probably better than Mercenaries than nerf, because that enables more synergistic aspects rather than just taking one away. And I think that's more fun because that makes the rock, paper, scissors meta become more nuanced. And I like that. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And as always, you look fantastic. First mercenary I'm going to talk about in this video, and arguably the weakest one, is Grom. And I saw Grom's kit from the get-go, and I just kind of knew how poor of a character Grom would be. And the reason why Grom feels so weak is because of the first ability, Blood Fervor. Now, it feels like when they were designing his kit, they kind of put everything into the Blood Fervor basket, because if you actually get the death blow on Blood Fervor the first turn you play Grom, his kit's kind of insane. You get a lot of attack, and you also can just Battle Fury the turn after, and that is a lot of damage to be dealing for a protector. But the problem is, if you don't get his death blow, Grom is basically useless. Like, he does not do anything. And I think Staggering Slam is definitely a okay ability. Like, it's definitely not awful, but comparison to just the rest of his kit, everything revolves around this. Now, I think a very easy fix for this ability would just be to gain +5 attack and attack an enemy, and then if you get the death blow, double his attack or something along those lines, because then you actually get something for attacking. Because if you did not know this, for upgrading this ability, you don't actually reduce the speed. You just try to put more attack on the death blow, which I think is just not good. And especially because Gore Howl just only stacks on to the death blow, it feels like if you just don't get this, Grom is virtually useless. And just as a comparison, if we go to Garrosh real fast, he has kind of the same ability, but Makarov makes the opponent attack back into Garrosh, which is just arguably a better case majority of the time, where Garrosh is like a literal bot if you don't get the death blow. If you do the change that I did, I actually think that Battle Fury becomes a much better ability. And on top of that, you don't actually have to feel as bad of just playing Grom in a comp, like especially like an Orc comp. I also think just in comparison as a protector, there is literally no reason to play Grom when you could just play Thrall with a Doomhammer and just for the Horde. It's just a better ability straight up, and Grom just feels just out of place. I feel like if they could just kind of fix his kit a little bit and put him more onto, like, you know, getting a buff anyways without the death blow, I think he could just be a lot, like, basically a much better mercenary just generally. I think Grom is very weak. He could be a lot better. But let me know what you think about Grom in the comments down below. Let's go to the next mercenary. Next on the list is Millhouse Mana Storm. Now, I actually think Millhouse's kit is not that bad. He's got a 4-speed AoE, which is kind of nuts, and it can do 12 damage when you have Arcane Powder equipped as the equipment. He has a scaling ability, which I think scaling abilities are pretty sweet. It kind of forces you to kill him, and if he can go Arcane Bolt into Arcane Explosion the turn after, it's a lot of damage to be dealing for just 2 abilities. But the problem with Millhouse is he's just no survivability compared to his other casters in the game. Now, I think a very good comparison to Millhouse is just Jaina. Now, the benefit of Jaina is that Jaina also has a scaling ability, but she has Ice Block. And with Ice Block, you kind of, you go immune, and it's also just a lot more awkward to deal with Jaina, because even if you focus Jaina, if you don't pop that block, she's guaranteeing to live an extra turn. And on top of that, then you have to kill her again, which is very, very good. And she also has 72 health, where Millhouse is, I mean, it's on 69 fully maxed, which is, obviously nice. But for a character, especially that you want to scale and you want to put into a comp, he has no survivability for what he wants to do. And I feel really bad. And maybe they did this on purpose because of the Arcane Explosion. And maybe with the addition of Cookie into the game with appetizers, maybe there's something to do with Millhouse. But I think at the moment, Millhouse's biggest issue is going to be survivability. Now, I don't think Millhouse needs a buff in terms of his abilities. I think his abilities are fine. Maybe you can make this 8 speed and I think it'd be okay. But I think he just needs a little bit of a nudge in his health. Maybe go up to 70, 72, 73. Now, you may not think those incremental health actually would change Millhouse, but every stat does matter. And if that means the difference of him living compared to not living, then he just becomes a straight up better mercenary in most cases. I don't know how they would generally fix his problem without giving him like some kind of ice block, but I think his kit is so interesting, and maybe with the addition of more arcane mercenaries, and if we ever get an arcane protector, we're in a pretty decent spot here. But I think Millhouse just needs a little bit of a nudge in the health, and I think Millhouse can be very good. Next on the list is Tyrande or Tyrande. I don't know what the naming conventions of all these characters are, but I think Tyrande's kit is the weakest one other than Grom's. Now, Grom's is all in on one ability, where Tyrande's kit just feels very weird to me that they designed it in such a unique way. And I'm talking about this ability, and I'm talking about Arcane Shot. Now, the problem with, I'm going to focus on this one because I think this one is the weirdest one of all time. Why does this deal 6 damage to 2 random enemies? And I think maybe the philosophy behind it was, well, we have Voon, and Voon does 8 damage to an enemy and one of its neighbors, so basically the adjacent mercenary. But they could have done something really unique with Tyrande's kit, which is, you know, she is an archer too, I believe she's a hunter, to just pick 2 enemies rather than 2 random ones. I think the technology is probably gonna be there for this ability, and if they ended up doing this, her kit actually becomes a lot better, because now it's 8 damage to 2, you know, mercenaries you want to hit, and you no longer have that random factor in, because the random factor here is a pretty big deal overall. It makes her so much weaker, and that's not the really big problem with her kit. Arcane Shot is a super weird ability. Now, I think with the charm, it's definitely not that bad, because I believe it goes all the way up to 20 damage, which is pretty great. But when you compare that to Tavish's Mark Shot, which is just arguably a better ability without even, or sorry, not Mark Shot, Aim Shot, without even adding the equipment, something doesn't feel right here. It's the same ability virtually, but he has an upside without actually using an equipment, where Tyrande just feels kind of like in this weird spot that she kind of needs it. And I just don't really know why. Now, I don't really know what the problem with this ability would be. Maybe if you make it like a speed faster, I think she could be a little bit better. Maybe with more Night Elves or more Arcane, same idea, she gets a little better. I do really like Elun's Grace, and I think the idea of it with affecting nature abilities is really cool. But this ability right here is just kind of stopping her from being a mercenary in the game. I just think if they made it to actually choose the 2 targets, it's in a lot better of a spot. I hope you end up doing it, Blizzard, if you watch this video, because I would like to play her in some comp. Last character I'm going to talk about here is Illidan. Now, I really liked Illidan from the beginning of the game. I think he has a very unique kit, but he kind of suffers from just being really lackluster compared to other fighters in the game. And one of the best comparisons here is actually Blademaster Samaro, who doesn't have more life than him at max health, but doesn't have to attack the left or rightmost enemy for him to actually be relevant in the game. And on top of this, his double strike ability is just better than Illidan's in almost every sense of the word, because if you're fighting against the caster, he probably kills them turn 1, where Illidan's kit does not. Illidan is really there for the, I guess, scaling, but because it's not like Janus scaling where you don't actually have to deal damage to yourself, Illidan always puts himself in a really weird circumstance of taking too much damage and dying, rather than just, you know, killing something straight up and already doing his job. Now, Illidan's kit is very interesting, and I think they did a really cool idea with it. Now, I know you can debate, you're gonna be like, oh, just play the Demon Shroud, it makes perfect sense here. But like, I think it would have been just strictly better for Illidan to just take 3 less damage or take 5 less damage, whatever they wanted to do as an equipment, with the trade-off of losing the attack, because just like I said, that it just feels so weird. And when you compare it more to Samaro, it just makes you feel kind of bad for Illidan, because Mirror Image is just a really good ability to follow up on double strike. He also has a immune. Illidan has a death blow outcast, which just feels so weak. Now, if you do get the death blow, I will say this, it is a lot of health, but same kind of general idea with Grom. Putting everything on the death blow does not feel great for the game, because it's really feast or famine, and most of the time it's going to be famine. Sometimes it might win you the game, especially if you use the Warglaves. But generally speaking, Illidan's kit is just kind of just really lackluster compared to Samaro. Now, how do you fix this? Maybe give him a higher base attack so he doesn't actually have to scale as hard. Maybe you give him more health so he has more time to scale, because Illidan dying turn 1 just feels so garbage, where Samaro, even if he died turn 1, he probably already did his job. And if not that, he probably did even more than his job and killed a caster. The Mercs, I think, need a buff desperately. Now, you're probably wondering, where's the demons? Where's the Murlocs? I actually think Murlocs are in a pretty good spot. I got wrecked by one at AKMMR, so I don't think Murlocs are a problem. I also think that like demons could be a little bit better, but I don't think any of them need a buff. I think they're just missing one mercenary to really fix their problem. Same with Alex. I think Alex has a really good kit, but she's just missing an extra dragon for her to be really, really good. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. What characters do you think needs a buff? I would love to see. And as always, you look fantastic.